Imagine standing in a crowded room, surrounded by voices, people talking, laughing, sharing their thoughts, and exchanging ideas effortlessly. However, as you listen, something feels off. Your mind operates differently. You see patterns where others see randomness, you ask questions that others deem unnecessary, you notice inconsistencies in the way people think. But when you try to point them out, the reaction isn't curiosity, it's discomfort. You are met with silence, rejection, or even hostility. Have you ever wondered why intelligence, instead of being admired, is often met with resistance, skepticism, or even hatred? Throughout history, the greatest minds have been rejected rather than celebrated. Socrates was executed for corrupting the youth with his relentless questioning. Galileo was condemned for challenging the accepted view of the universe. Nature's ideas were considered dangerous, and Friedrich Nietzsche argued that people, while trying to create their own meanings, clash with societal norms, which is why he preferred living in isolation. But why does this happen? Why do societies resist intelligence instead of embracing it? Why do intelligent people often feel isolated, misunderstood, or even rejected? Today, we will explore the deep psychological and philosophical reasons behind this phenomenon, uncover hidden truths about human nature and society, and the final revelation will be unsettling enough to change the way you see intelligence and its place in the world forever. To understand why intelligence is often unwelcome, we must first acknowledge a fundamental truth. Most people do not seek truth, they seek comfort. Intelligence disrupts this comfort. It questions, analyzes, and dismantles the illusions people rely on to make sense of the world. Society, at its core, is built on shared beliefs, unspoken agreements, and collective narratives that provide stability. When someone challenges these narratives, the response is not appreciation, but resistance. Nietzsche argued that human nature is largely driven by instinct, emotion, and self-interest, rather than pure reason. He believed that the masses instinctively reject those who think too deeply because intelligence forces them to confront their own limitations. It is far easier to dismiss a highly intelligent person as arrogant or out of touch than to engage with ideas that might be unsettling. This is why intelligent individuals often find themselves on the fringes of society, unable to fully integrate into groups that prioritize conformity over critical thought. Have you ever noticed how intelligence is often portrayed in culture? The nerd, the know-it-all, the socially awkward genius. These stereotypes do not exist by accident. They serve a purpose. They diminish the perceived value of intelligence. When society mocks intelligence, it neutralizes its threat. Instead of aspiring to deep thinking, people are conditioned to see intelligence as something undesirable or disconnected from reality. This is not an oversight. It is a mechanism of social control. But this phenomenon is not just about insecurity or jealousy. It runs much deeper. Society functions on a principle of cohesion, and intelligence, by its very nature, disrupts cohesion. Social bonds are formed through shared experiences, mutual understanding, and common perspectives. An intelligent person, however, often sees beyond the surface. They notice contradictions, inconsistencies, and hidden truths. This creates an unspoken divide between those who embrace comfortable illusions and those who challenge them. This divide is not just abstract, it has real-world consequences. Intelligent individuals frequently find themselves excluded from social circles, overlooked in workplaces, or even deliberately undermined. The term intellectual elitism is often used as an accusation, suggesting that intelligence is synonymous with arrogance. But is it arrogance to perceive reality with clarity, or is it simply the inevitable result of seeing the world as it is? And this leads us to an even more unsettling truth, one that many refuse to acknowledge. Intelligence is not just misunderstood or ignored, it is actively resisted. But why? What is it about intelligence that society finds so threatening? In the next part, we will dive even deeper into this question. We will uncover the hidden psychological mechanisms that drive people to resent intelligence, and we will reveal the most dangerous consequence of being highly intelligent in a world that fears those who think too deeply. The rejection of intelligence by society is not merely an accident, nor is it just a result of insecurity or envy. It is a deeply ingrained psychological mechanism, one that serves a crucial function in maintaining the cohesion of the collective. But to truly understand why intelligence is often resented, we must look beyond individual interactions and examine the underlying structures of human behavior, social dynamics, and even evolutionary psychology. At its core, intelligence is disruptive. It questions traditions, challenges authority, and exposes contradictions. And this is precisely what makes it dangerous in the eyes of society. Throughout history, those who think differently, those who question and challenge established norms, have often been met with hostility, exile, or worse. But this resistance to intelligence is not just about the ideas themselves, it is about power. Power in society is maintained through control over narratives, beliefs, and the general perception of reality. Intelligence, when used critically, has the potential to break that control. It shines a light on the illusions that hold societies together. Governments, religious institutions, and cultural systems often rely on collective acceptance of certain ideas, whether they are about morality, justice, or even the nature of reality itself. When someone begins to question these structures, they become a threat, not just to those in power, but to the entire system that depends on mass conformity. This is why history is filled with cases of thinkers, writers, and philosophers being silent. Socrates was executed for encouraging people to think independently. Galileo was forced to recant his scientific discoveries because they contradicted religious doctrine even in modern times. Intellectuals who challenge mainstream narratives often face social and professional consequences. This pattern reveals something disturbing. Intelligence is not just resented, it is often suppressed, but beyond these external forces, there is an even deeper psychological component. At play, human beings by nature seek belonging. We're social creatures, and one of our deepest fears is exclusion. Intelligence, however, often leads to alienation. Those who think differently, who see the world with greater depth, often find themselves isolated, not because they wish to be, but because their way of thinking naturally sets them apart. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation where you noticed logical inconsistencies, but when you pointed them out, the reaction was no interest but irritation? Have you ever questioned a widely accepted belief only to be met with hostility rather than curiosity? This is because intelligence, when it contradicts the dominant worldview, is perceived not as insight but as an attack. It forces people to reconsider their beliefs, and this is something most are unwilling to do. Schopenhauer described this phenomenon in his philosophy of pessimism. He believed that people do not seek truth, but rather they seek to avoid suffering, and truth, more often than not, is painful. It forces individuals to confront their ignorance, their own limitations, and event their own mortality. Intelligence does not offer comfort, it fosters reality, and reality is not always kind. This is why intelligent individuals often struggle with loneliness. They see through illusions that others accept without question. They notice patterns of manipulation in politics, media, and culture. They see how history repeats itself, how the same mistakes are made over and over again, and yet despite their insights, they are rarely listened to. Instead, they are dismissed as overly critical, cynical, or even paranoid. But there is something even more dangerous that happens when intelligence is rejected on a larger scale. When societies consistently suppress or ignore the most intelligent among them, they begin to decline. Innovation slows, progress is hindered. Instead of advancing, societies become stagnant, repeating the same mistakes and falling into cycle. Of ignorance and decay. Many great civilizations throughout history have collapsed, not because they lacked intelligence, but because they refused to listen to it. This raises a critical question: if intelligence is so crucial for progress, why does society continually resist it? The answer lies in the balance between order and chaos. Intelligence introduces chaos because it challenges existing structures. Society, in order to function, requires stability, and stability often comes at the cost of suppressing ideas that could create too much disruption. But there is a paradox here. While intelligence is often resisted, it is also necessary. The very same individuals who are dismissed, ignored, or even ridiculed are the ones who push humanity forward. Every major breakthrough in science, philosophy, and technology has come from those who dared to think differently despite the resistance they faced. So what does this mean for those who are intelligent in a world that seems to resent them? How can one navigate a society that both needs intelligence and fears it at the same time? And what is the ultimate consequence of living in a world where intelligence is not only undervalued but actively suppressed? In the next part, we will explore these questions in depth. We will uncover the hidden costs of intelligence, the psychological burden of seeing reality too clearly, and the final, most unsettling truth about why society rejects those who think beyond the ordinary. The paradox of intelligence is that while society needs it to progress, it simultaneously rejects and suppresses it. But why does this happen on such a consistent basis? Why do the most insightful minds often struggle the most not just with external rejection, but with their own internal battles? The answer lies in the psychological burden that comes with intelligence. To see the world clearly is both a gift and a curse. On one hand, intelligence allows for greater understanding, deeper insights, and the ability to foresee consequences that others miss. But on the other hand, it also leads to frustration, alienation, and an overwhelming awareness of problems that others either do not see or choose to ignore. This heightened awareness can be exhausting. Intelligent individuals often find themselves burdened with thoughts that others dismiss as irrelevant or pessimistic. Have you ever noticed how easy it is for some people to go through life without questioning anything they accept? Traditions, follow social norms, and believe whatever they are told. They do not seem troubled by inconsistencies, contradictions, or the irrationality of human behavior. This is because ignorance, whether natural or intentional, provides a kind of mental peace. Those who do not think deeply are often happier because they are not burdened by the weight of knowledge. Schopenhauer believed that suffering was an inevitable consequence of intelligence. The more one understands reality, the more one sees its imperfections. She argued that most people avoid deep thought because it leads to discomfort, while those who cannot help but think deeply often experience loneliness, frustration, and even despair. It is not intelligence itself that causes suffering, it is the awareness that comes with it. But beyond the personal burden, intelligence also creates a social problem. Intelligent individuals disrupt harmony. They ask too many questions, expose flaws in systems, and resist mindless conformity. This makes them difficult to control, and society at its core is on control. It depends on people following rules, accepting authority, and functioning. Gas predictable cooperative units. Intelligence, however, introduces unpredictability. It creates individuals who challenge norms rather than blindly following them. This is why intelligent people are often seen as troublemakers rather than visionaries. Their insights, no matter how valuable, are perceived as disruptive rather than helpful. This is especially true in environments where authority is built on unquestioned obedience. Whether in politics, religion, or corporate structures, those who think independently are often sidelined, excluded, or then punished for their unwillingness to conform. And yet intelligence is necessary. It is the foundation of progress. Every major breakthrough, whether in science, philosophy, or technology, has come from those who refuse to accept conventional thinking. But because these individuals threaten existing power structures, they are often rejected until their ideas become impossible to ignore. Consider how many thinkers were ridiculed before being recognized as geniuses. Nikola Tesla died in poverty despite his groundbreaking work. Vincent van Gogh dism. Is a madman in his lifetime. Even Albert Einstein's ideas were initially met with skepticism before revolutionizing physics. The pattern is clear. Intelligence is resisted until it becomes undeniable. But what happens to those whose intelligence is never recognized? What about the countless individuals who see the world clearly but are never given a voice? They often experience deep frustration, a sense of isolation, and in many cases self-doubt. They wonder if there is something wrong with them because their way of thinking does not align with those around. But the truth is, their struggle is not a reflection of their failure. It is a consequence of their clarity. So what can be done if intelligence leads to resistance, rejection, and even suffering? How should highly intelligent individuals navigate a world that seems to resent them? Should they suppress their intelligence to fit, and should they isolate themselves completely, or is there another way? In the final part, we will uncover the most important truth of Alun that will not only explain why intelligence is hated, but also reveal how those who possess can find meaning, purpose, and even fulfillment in a world that often refuses to understand them. So if intelligence is both a gift and a burden, how can those who possess it find their place in a world that resists them? Should they resign themselves to isolation? Should they suppress their insights to blend in, or is there another path, one that allows them to embrace their intelligence while still finding meaning and connection? To answer this, we must first acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. Society is not designed for the highly intelligent. It is structured around efficiency, predictability, and conformity. To those who think deeply, question assumptions, or see beyond the surface, struggle within this structure. But that does not mean they are destined to suffer. It simply means they must approach life differently. The first step is understanding that rejection does not mean failure. If you are intelligent and feel misunderstood, it is not because you're broken, it is because you're different. And being different, while difficult, is not a flaw. Many of history's greatest minds face the same struggles. What set them apart was just their intelligence, but their ability to Persist despite resistance. One of the most important strategies for navigating an indifferent or hostile society is choosing where to direct your energy. Not everyone will understand your thoughts. Not everyone will appreciate your insights. Trying to force people to see what they are not ready to see will only lead to frustration. Instead, the key is to seek out those who understand, to find the rare individuals who think as deeply as you do, who value ideas as much as you do, and who are not afraid to question reality. Schopenhauer believed that intelligent individuals often find their greatest peace in solitude. But solitude doesn't have to mean lone lines. It can mean focusing on personal growth, creative pursuits, or intellectual exploration. It can mean finding fulfillment in knowledge itself rather than seeking external validation. Many of the world's greatest thinkers lived reclusive lives, not because they were rejected, but because they chose to dedicate themselves to something greater than social approval. But for those who seek connection, there is another path: to become a bridge between intelligence and society. Rather than withdrawing completely or forcing intelligence upon those who resist it, some of the most successful intellectuals have learned to communicate their insights in ways that others can grasp. They translate complexities into language that resonates with the world. They find a way to integrate intelligence into culture, rather than standing apart from it. This is not about diluting intelligence or pretending to be something you are not. It is about recognizing that intelligence, when isolated, remains unheard, but intelligence that finds a way to engage with the world can change it. Every major shift in human history began with someone who thought differently but found a way to share their vision. The challenge is not just to see the truth, it's to make the truth accessible. Even with this approach, the struggle remains. Intelligence will always be resisted. Those who think deeply will always feel the weight of understanding in a world that prefers simplicity. There will be times when it feels easier to give up, to conform, or to retreat into solitude. But there is one final truth, one that must never be forgotten. The world needs intelligent people. Even if it does not always appreciate them, every breakthrough, every innovation, every advancement in human thought thus come from those who refuse to accept easy answers. Lie intelligence may be resented in the present, it shapes the future. And those who possess it must decide: will they let society's rejections silence them, or will they persist, knowing that their insights, though unwelcome, now may one day change everything? Perhaps the greatest lesson of all is this: intelligence, like all forms of power, comes with responsibility. It's not just about understanding the world, it's about deciding what to do with that understanding, and for those who embrace it, despite their resistance, the possibilities are limitless.